Hello everyone, Drip here. Yes, I'm officially back. I'm done with all my exams, so what better way to commemorate my return by debunking a Goku downplay video? Let's get started.
Those shockwaves threatening to destroy the Macrocosm weren't Goku's raw power, but an illustration between God Ki. Think about it like this. When two people push against each with equal force, their hand shakes, but if one stops pushing, the shaking stops, meaning the shaking wasn't from just one person.
This is a horrible false equivalence. Goku and Beerus were not just shaking each other's hands, they were shaking an entire macrocosm. Next.
You cannot argue that they nullified them because old Kai explicitly stated that is their unfathomable ki clashing.
I'm gonna ask you two questions. 1. Where does the ki come from? 2. When did we start separating characters from their power system? Like, are we dead ass?
People who claim Goku nullified them alone are ignoring Beerus' role in the clash. Even he himself said he was holding back.
The two factors of Beerus holding back or Goku doing it alone are completely irrelevant, as scaling to any percentage of infinity would put you at a level of infinity yourself, because you can't divide infinity by finite numbers.
It was said, to understand the cosmology of Dragon Ball Z, you'll have to take a brief but interesting side trip into the realm of Asian mythology. In Asian mythology, where transcendence is mentioned, example Buddhist realms like Devaloka, refers to spiritual elevation, not spatial dimensions. But
not every aspect of Asian methodology necessarily has to refer to just spiritual elevation. Also, you cited an example called Devaloka, so why does it necessarily have to follow that example? You never gave the argument for that. Obviously, Devaloka is not the only example of Asian methodology. There are multiple other examples that also entail higher planes of existence. So why does it necessarily have to be the case that it is the example that you are using? Your argument is buns and you are a low-tier garbage. I could also just argue that Otherworld being inspired by Asian methodology doesn't necessarily have to mean that it follows it one-to-one. You're also a completely dishonest piece of shit because in the same guidebook that you cited, Otherworld is verbatim implied to be a higher plane of existence. So it's clear that they had the intention that it follows the aspects of Asian methodology that entail higher planes of existence. I don't know why you were leaving this out, because your followers are ignorant or dumb or whatever.
News that doesn't prove anything. Kiyama, the series chief writer, says in his tweet, I'm not saying that Dragon Ball World is up to 7th plane. He refers it to our world, which just proves everything.
Okay, I don't give a fuck. I'm not arguing for 7th dimensional Otherworld. I'm arguing for outerversal Otherworld. If Koyama says anything that contradicts what's shown in the guidebooks, that would just be death of the author. Koyama can have wrong opinions. It's possible.
When the Daisenshu 4 label the Otherworld as a planet in Snakeway, a 1 million kilometers physical path, proving it's a 3-dimensional realm.
You require physical objects with mass in order to correlate it to spatial temporality. Otherworld is verbatim stated on multiple occasions. This is just one of the scans, but it's stated on multiple occasions to be a non-physical plane of existence, a spiritual plane of existence, implying that nothing there is physical, hence it cannot correlate to any form of physical mass, hence it cannot correlate to spatial temporality, hence there is no space-time. This is an easy argument to track. The only reason why all those things are drawn there is because of entertainment purposes. You can't leave it as a blank white void because it would not be entertaining to watch. Imagine Goku just going to a blank white void. That wouldn't make any sense for the plot. It wouldn't be entertaining to read or watch, right? The only reason they do that is for entertainment purposes. Even if you left it as a blank white void, light still implies the existence of light and photons require space-time to exist. So by that logic, no fiction can be outerversal because it can be drawn in a manga. It can't be represented without color, right? This is why you don't apply this type of logic in power scaling, because it defeats the very purpose of power scaling, the very premise of power scaling, which is quantifications. We have to ignore certain limitations of fiction in order to be able to quantify feats. That is how power scaling works. The fact that we are still learning this in Big 25 is disappointing. You would get absolutely bodied by any of my students if you tried to use this argument against them.
Yet Snakeway has a literal distance. King Kai's planet has measurable gravity, 10 times Earth.
Since we already established that Otherworld is non-physical and non-spatial, it would be more parsimonious to say that this is a non-physical conceptual force that acts like gravity, rather than arguing that Otherworld is non-physical and non-spatial and yet still possesses gravity, which obviously would be contradictory.
And the afterlife is repeatedly shown being threatened by universal destruction. Boo, Zamasu, etc. Goku ages there in DBZ chapter 430.
Goku did not age in the Otherworld ever. I don't know what version of Dragon Ball you're reading, but it's not my Dragon Ball.
Linguist Matt Alt, who has Japanese major and international relations major, explains that in anime, transcending dimensions, Ijigen, is often poetic flair for realms inaccessible to mortals.
Okay, not only did you not provide any evidence that this came from this Matt Alt person at all, but just because something is often the case doesn't mean it necessarily has to be the case. If it's verbatim stated that it's a higher plane of existence, you cannot deny that. I do not give a fuck about this trash argument you are making, bro.
If there's no time in heaven, how does Goku train? Maybe King Kai has a clock.
Toriyama doesn't deny the fact that time doesn't exist in heaven. He just said maybe King Kai has a clock as a joke. And it doesn't matter if King Kai had a clock, because just because you bring an object that measures time into a place that doesn't have time doesn't necessarily now mean that that place somehow has time. Time is not a unified thing or concept in Dragon Ball. The Grand Priest measures time in tacks, for God's sake. Time is different for planets around the solar system, for God's sake. Time is not the exact same thing. So just because you have an object that correlates to Earth's time doesn't necessarily mean that the afterlife has time, right? If Kenkai had a clock, it would simply be to give Goku a mental ideation of time that correlates to the one on Earth, rather than it literally meaning that Otherworld correlates to something that has spatial temporality. I'm gonna say this again because you suck at tracking. Bringing an object that measures time into a realm that doesn't have time doesn't mean that that realm has time. If I count to 10 seconds in a timeless realm, that doesn't mean that 10 seconds actually pass in the timeless realm.
In 1995, he admitted, "I don't think deeply about time or dimensions, nuking the idea that the other world's transcendence is anything but narrative convenience."
Just because he doesn't think too deeply about time or dimensions doesn't necessarily mean he can't have logical applications or implications of that concept within the series. He says that if he needs Goku to train for a year, then he'll say that a year passes even in heaven. The reason why this is the case is because 1 year, right, is an earthly measurement of time. So obviously, if Goku is training in that afterlife, right, he's going to use a mental ideation of earthly time, because obviously a year is different for, you know, all the planets in the solar system. A year is different for all the people out in the universe in Dragon Ball, right? So it's obviously just in reference to earthly years specifically. So it's just a mental ideation of earthly time that Goku trains for.
It's timeless, but temporal dilation requires linear time, Einstein's relativity, meaning the chamber is still bound by three-dimensional space-time.
Nobody argues that the room of spirit and time doesn't have space-time. I don't know why you're bringing this up, and I don't know why you're bringing up scans for the afterlife when talking about the room of spirit and time. This is dumb.
Drip Sauce claims it transcends space-time. The Sugoroku space is just a subdimensional highway Goku accidentally fell into during teleportation, not some outerversal void.
Please roll the clip where I ever said that the Sugoroku space transcends space-time. In the scan that you showed, I specifically relate those qualities to the instant transmission realm, which I address as containing the Sugoroku space. I never claimed that the Sugoroku space itself transcends space-time. If you read the scan properly, you see where I say that Goku falls while transporting in the instant transmission realm into the Sugoroku space, which I never claimed was transcendent in any way. You lack reading comprehension.
Some dumbass may still say, but it lacks dimension. Lacking spatial axes cannot equal to transcending them. A zero-dimensional point is dimensionless, not outerversal.
Nobody said that simply lacking space-time makes you outerversal. It's when you have the quality of lacking space-time and transcending space-time that makes you outerversal. Because when you use reductio ad absurdum, you cannot lack space-time and be a dimensional construct, because dimensional constructs entail space-time. And you cannot transcend space-time and be zero-dimensional, because zero-dimensional cannot transcend anything. So if you have both qualities, it'll be self-contradictory to assert any other proposition than it being outerversal. Hence, it's more parsimonious to say that a realm that lacks space-time and transcends space-time in the same context would be outerversal by definition, because reductio ad absurdum prevents us from having any contradictions within the argument.
And the Sugoroku is never stated to lack dimensions, only to exist outside normal space-time, which still operates under 3D physics.
That scan is obviously a mistranslation, and you intentionally left out the kanji, you dishonest piece of shit. The scan in question is referring to the instant transmission realm, which is where Goku and the Supreme Kais go when they teleport. This realm contains both hyperbolic time chamber and the Sugoroku space, and this realm in question has no concepts of space and time. It's verbatim stated that it has no concepts of space and time. You can take all this kanji and translate it yourself and see that this guy is a dishonest piece of shit.
For instance, Goku needing to breathe there.
You made the claim that Goku needed to breathe there, but you never provided the evidence for this, so I'm gonna just dismiss this via Hitchens razor.
The Daisen confirms it's a transit zone, not a higher plane.
The scan you sent doesn't say that, and it doesn't matter because they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Both premises can still be true within the same context. It can be a transit zone and still be a higher plane of existence. I don't understand why they have to be mutually exclusive.
The word void is explicitly called an infinite space, Wu Xian no Kongjian, not a dimensionless void.
You claim that it's not called a dimensionless void, but in the same scan you sent, it states that it is without time and space and filled with infinite nothingness. So for both premises to be true, it logically has to be a dimensionless void. I don't understand where you're getting this from.
Meaning it's just an endless three-dimensional expanse, like our universe if it never ended, proven by Goku moving, breathing, and creating shockwaves, all impossible in true nothingness.
This is just complete utter brain rot and proof that you did not watch the show. The Grand Prix specifically manipulated the gravity for every fighter to feel like their home planet, implying that he added gravity himself. So everything that pertains to three-dimensionality is only for the arena and doesn't apply to the world of Void itself. This is very common knowledge. Anyways, you can join my Discord server and we can debate on this topic, and I can completely embarrass and destroy you in front of thousands of people because I'm obviously going to stream it on YouTube for that money. So yeah, this guy is full of hot shit. I don't know why we're still at 4,000 followers when my Call of Duty account is literally at almost 6,000 followers. If you want me to debunk any more videos or make a scale, just send me 20 bucks through Super Chat on my YouTube channel and make sure to subscribe. Once you've done that, send me the evidence that you sent me that money on my Discord server. If you don't have access to my Discord server, tell me in the comment section. Remember, it can't be less than $20. only when you send the money, then I can make a debunk for you.